We tend to think of history as this thing that's all done and dusted, a story that's already been written, put on a shelf, and that's that. But what if that's not the whole picture?
What if history is actually more like a cold case, full of mysteries and missing pieces, just waiting for someone to come along, find new clues, and completely blow the case wide open? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We are reopening the file on one of the most famous empires of all time, the Inca.
So let's start with something the Incas are absolutely famous for, their incredible road system, the Kapaknian. For hundreds of years, the story we all heard was pretty simple, right? The Incas were these master engineers who built this gigantic network from the ground up to connect their empire. But it turns out the real story is way more complicated.
And a huge part of this new understanding is thanks to absolute pioneers like Sonia Aveles Loiza. Her work, which she started way back in the 90s, was a total game changer. She didn't just see roads for moving armies or goods, she saw them as living, breathing parts of a cultural world. And what she found started to change everything we thought we knew.
Okay, so here's the old story versus the new evidence. The old story, the Incas built it all from scratch. The new story, based on some serious archaeology, the roads are layered. The Incas were brilliant, for sure, but they didn't start from zero. They built on top of, adapted, and massively expanded road systems that were already there, left behind by even older cultures like the Tiwanaku and Aymara. It's just a fantastic reminder that history is almost never a clean slate. One civilization is almost always building, literally, on top of the last one.
And what's so incredible is that these roads are not just dusty old relics. Not at all. They are a living, breathing heritage. Today, communities are reclaiming these paths and turning them into things like community museums, places to teach traditional medicine, art, and weaving. They become these powerful sites of cultural pride and education, connecting people in the present directly to a past that's even deeper than the Inca Empire.
All right, let's switch gears and jump to a totally different part of the empire, because this is where the mystery really deepens. We're heading out to the fringes, to a place where, for a long time, the Inca presence was thought to be pretty minimal, if it was even there at all.
So, for ages, experts basically wrote off the central coast of Ecuador. The conventional wisdom was that the Incas tried to conquer this area, they couldn't, and so they just left it alone. But brand new archaeological discoveries are making us completely rethink that entire narrative.
And a lot of the new clues are coming from this one spot, Isla de la Plata. It's a sacred island that was a spiritual hotspot for local cultures for centuries before the Incas ever showed up. And the evidence archaeologists are finding here, it doesn't scream military conquest. It points to something else entirely, something much more subtle and ceremonial.
Now, to really get what's happening, you have to know about this one key Inca ritual, Kapahusha. This was not your everyday ceremony. This was a huge deal. A massive, state-sponsored ritual with incredibly symbolic offerings, sometimes even human sacrifices. And it was only performed at the most sacred places, often to mark the edges of the empire or to seal a new alliance with local leaders.
And guess what they found on Isla de la Plata? All the classic signs of this exact ritual. The burial sites of two young women, surrounded by telltale Inca offerings, tiny little figurines, beautiful clothing pins, and, get this, ceramic pots that chemical analysis proved were made hundreds and hundreds of miles away in the Inca capital city of Cuzco itself. I mean, come on, this was not some random trade deal. This was the highest form of Inca imperial ritual, happening in a place they supposedly never even controlled.
But the plot thickens, back on the mainland, at another sacred place called Cerro Haboncillo. This was a major ceremonial mountain for the local Montano people. And here, too, archaeologists found the unmistakable, though very sneaky, fingerprint of the Inca.
Take a look at the architecture here. Right at the very top of this sacred mountain, researchers mapped out a cluster of buildings. But something was off. They weren't all built the same way.
On the one hand, you have the standard local Montano style, rectangular buildings. But sitting right next to them are buildings with a trapezoidal shape. Now that trapezoid is a classic, iconic signature move of Inca imperial architecture. Finding it here, it's like finding a perfect Roman arch in the middle of an ancient village in Ireland. It's so out of place, you know it means something big.
So this suggests it wasn't a conquest at all. It looks a lot more like a collaboration. The Incas didn't just roll in and tear down the local sacred site, they added to it, respectfully. This blending of two different styles is a perfect example of a core Andean idea called tinku, where you bring two separate, even opposing forces together to create something new and more powerful.
It seems the Incas were using diplomacy and ritual, not just brute force, to expand their influence. So, we've seen how digging in the earth can rewrite the story of an empire. But what if the digging needs to happen somewhere else entirely? Say, in an archive? This whole idea of looking for a hidden history, for the parts of the story that got left out, goes so much deeper than just ancient stones and roads.
Yeah, this search for a more complete, a truer story, it's also about finding the people who were silenced, whose voices were just erased from the official records, whether on purpose or by accident. And that kind of archaeology, well, it takes a whole different set of tools.
And that's where the work of modern-day history detectives, like the incredible historian Sarah Beatriz Guardia, comes in. With organizations like Semhal, she's spent decades doing her own kind of digging, not in the dirt, but in dusty archives, challenging the old stories to uncover the histories of women who have been systematically ignored.
She puts the mission of this work so perfectly. Her words, to know that other side of history, to find your true face. This is the objective of the history of women. It's about restoring the whole picture of the past by finding the people who were always there but were made invisible.
And this isn't just an abstract idea. We're talking about recovering the real lives and stories of revolutionary leaders like Micaela Bastida and Bartolina Sisa, trailblazing writers like Flora Chastan, and so many other women whose contributions were just minimized or erased entirely. It's about giving them back their names and their rightful place in history.
So, ancient roads, coastal rituals, forgotten historical figures, what do all these things have in common? Why does digging up these hidden histories actually matter so much?
Well, it's because at the end of the day, the quest is exactly the same. It doesn't matter if you're an archaeologist carefully brushing dirt off a 500-year-old pot or a historian piecing together a forgotten life from scattered letters. The goal is the same, to get closer to the whole story. Both are pushing back against the easy, simple version of the past and revealing one that is so much more complex, so much more layered, and honestly, so much more interesting.
It's a powerful reminder that history is never really finished, is it? It's a living thing that changes every time we find a new clue, which leaves us with one last, really important question. What other histories, what other silenced voices are still out there, just waiting for us to start digging?